Hey guys, it's Katie, and I'm here today to do a review for the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. As you guys might remember from several months ago when I read the Grisha trilogy, I really did not like the Grisha trilogy. It can be argued that I despised it. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts on that, I'm going to link my review for up above. But today we're here to talk about her other sub-series within the overall world, and that is the Six of Crows duology. I think I heard it's actually supposed to be expanded upon and might become a trilogy or a series or something, but for now it's just 2 books, and it is comprised of Six of Crows, which is book 1, and then Crooked Kingdom, which is book 2. So the way that I'm going to kind of do this is I think I'm going to talk about each book separately. So it's basically like my normal review, but of each book. But then maybe I'll talk about the overall series at the end. So for those of you who have been hiding under a rock for 10 million years and don't know what the Six of Crows duology is about, it follows a group of these 6 young teenage kids in the streets of this place called Ketterdam, which is basically like Amsterdam in a lot of ways. And they're a bunch of thieves, basically. So we have, as I said, 6 main characters. We have Kaz, Inej, Nina, Matthias, Jesper, and Wylan. And I will talk about each of them separately as the video goes on. But we follow these 6 characters as they go on this heist to save someone from a super walled-in fortress, basically. And the entire first book is kind of based around this heist rescue kind of a situation. And we really start to get to know the characters and kind of figure out what they're all about and just kind of expand on the world. So that's the sort of semi-gist as what this book is, what this duology is about. But book 1, that's mostly what that's about. And book 2 just picks up kind of right where book 1 left off. So first, talking about Six of Crows. As I said, Six of Crows really just follows these 6 characters as they go on this heist rescue to save everyone. And I'm not really going to go much further into that because that would just be in a spoilery category, but I am going to tell you guys that for Six of Crows, I actually buddy read it with Kara from Wild Book Garden, and we had a lot of similar thoughts to each other on that whole situation. And she actually did a review of Six of Crows, and I'll link that down below for you guys. But I'm gonna launch into my normal review thing. So first talking a little bit about the writing from Six of Crows. The writing was infinitely better than the Grisha trilogy, like loads better than the Grisha trilogy. However, I found it still to be severely lacking. It was still very choppy. There were certain aspects of it that I really didn't like. It didn't flow as well as I wanted it to. It would jump around a lot, and I thought her use of flashbacks was really sloppy and just not really that well done. And the pacing was only okay. It was really not the strong point of the book. And I found myself in both books, but primarily in Six of Crows, just kind of removing myself from the story from time to time because of the way that the writing was done in some places. And when I do that, then I notice how it's being written and how sentences are actually being formed. And I hate it when I am able to kind of remove myself from a story like that and then just kind of focus on the writing. It just really detracts from my overall enjoyment of the book. So I just was not impressed by the writing, even though it was loads better than the Grisha trilogy. Now, talking a little bit about the world building, there really wasn't any world building in Six of Crows. If you want the world building, you're going to have to read Grisha first, and I think that's why a lot of people actually recommend that you read Grisha first. It's because you get actual world building and understand how the world works. And while Six of Crows takes place in a different part of the world, you still need to understand what was going on in Ravka in order to understand kind of the world building of Ketterdam. So I just really was not impressed by the world building because, as I said, there just really wasn't any, or very, very little. Like, we got a little bit of a background as to what Ketterdam was like, and Ketterdam is basically this canal-driven city that's very gritty and very dark and very crime-filled. Like, it's just basically overrun by all different kinds of crimes and all kinds of different really nasty people. And as I said, that's about really all we get from the world building in that part of the world. So it's just definitely not the book's strong point at all whatsoever. Now, moving on to the plot, I was severely bored by the plot in Six of Crows. As I said, it follows the story of these 6 people as they kind of get together for a job and go on this heist to rescue someone. And that's basically the plot. And because it's all centered around them, like, planning and then, like, ultimately doing the heist thing, it was just really boring and was really predictable in a lot of ways. And I just was not impressed. I mean, a lot of people I know are like, oh my God, the heist was so exciting. Honestly, I was super bored during the heist. I did not care. I knew what was going to happen, and I just wasn't impressed at all by it. I was just really quite apathetic about the whole story, honestly. I didn't really feel strongly one way or another, but the heist was just very disappointing, and I just found myself removing myself from the story once again and just not caring what was going on. So that really was quite disappointing for me. And then finally, talking about the characters. As I said, there are these 6 characters: Kaz, Inej, Matthias, Nina, Jesper, and Wylan. And there were definitely some I really, really enjoyed, and there were others that I really did not enjoy. Let's start by talking about Kaz. Kaz was honestly one of the most frustrating characters from this whole experience for me. He is supposedly an 18-year-old boy who is kind of this like criminal mastermind, and he's just really, really super good at reading people and figuring out all of this stuff, and he's really ruthless, right? And he's 18, and he's basically become a really well-known criminal, a really well-known thief. He has this huge reputation. He's really, really great at everything. He's also incredibly full of himself, and he's one of the most extra people I have ever read about. And that's saying something, because I've read a lot of extra characters, but he's just takes extra to kind of a whole new level. And I literally found myself shouting at him regularly, and I'm like, but you need to chill, and you need to get over yourself, and you need to just stop. So it can be argued that Kaz was my least favorite character, but he wasn't, surprisingly. I found him a little bit entertaining sometimes, but then as time went on, I just found him to be more and more irritating. Next, talking about Inej. Inej is an interesting character, but she also got a little bit annoying at times too. She's known as the Wraith, and she's kind of a daring acrobat that is also very, very, very stealthy. She's one of the best people at the kind of work that she particularly does. And so I really liked reading her scenes when she was, being super stealthy and stuff. Like, I thought that was kind of interesting. But then her interactions with certain characters, Kaz, were really quite annoying. Kaz and Inej kind of had this budding, slow-burny romance thing going on. And it just really didn't work for me. And I'm a person who actually really loves slow burn romance. Like, it's one of my favorite tropes if I have to have any. Slow burn is one of my favorite romantic tropes. But theirs just didn't work for me, primarily because I just didn't feel connected or invested in either of the characters, but also just the way their story was written, I just felt like it just wasn't working. It just felt forced. It felt awkward, and it just, as I said, really didn't work for me. Now moving on to Matthias. Matthias is arguably my least favorite character from Six of Crows. I did not like him pretty much the entire book of Six of Crows. He's incredibly misogynistic. He's incredibly bigoted. He has his own ideals and thoughts and things. In some ways, he's misogynistic. He's very racist. I just was not feeling his character. And I know a lot of people really, really liked his character, and I just was not understanding why. And he just, I don't know. I was never connected to him. I didn't care about anything about his storyline. But at the same time, he intrigued me in some ways because he was from a place called Fjerda, and I really wanted to know more about that. And we got snippets here and there, but I want to actually go there, like actually go there in the books, in the world, and kind of see how that all happens and everything. So I was intrigued, but I also just hated him. And whenever it was one of his POV chapters, I was just like, oh, come on, let this chapter end. So I just really, really disliked Matthias. And next we're going to talk about Nina. Nina is actually one of my favorite characters from Six of Crows. She is a Grisha, she's a heartrender, and she is just a wonderful character. She is unashamed of just eating all the time. She's slightly overweight, I think, and she's just a little firecracker, and I just really enjoyed seeing her tale, her internal struggles, and just seeing her character get fleshed out. She just had a lot of really interesting dynamics, and the only times I really did enjoy Matthias was when he was interacting with Nina, because they had apparently some kind of past, but they just were not getting along for a long time. But then once you start to kind of get to know them a little bit more, their dynamic is really interesting. And Nina is like one of those great badass females who's not afraid to put men in their place. And I'm just like, yes, queen. So I was just really enjoying her character. But sometimes I just did not feel that extra connection to her. But overall, I really, really liked Nina, and she was one of my favorites from the book. And next, we're going to talk about Jesper. Jesper is also one of my favorite characters. I love him so much. Jesper is a sharpshooter boy, and he's also Grisha. He is a fabricator, and he's literally a perfect shot. And I just really enjoyed seeing him and his character. Like, he has a gambling problem, and that means he's really rash, so he loves taking all of these risks. But he's also a sassy, snarky boy, and I live and breathe for sassy and snarky characters. So of course I was going to like Jesper, and I was not disappointed. Him and his sassy banter, in particular with my favorite boy, who we'll talk about in a second, Wylan. I just absolutely loved their dynamic so much. I hated his interactions with Kaz, just because Kaz is like, can't get over himself, and he's just so, as I said, irritating. But I really liked seeing Jesper's interactions with each of the crows, because he just had an interesting dynamic with each and every one of them. And I love him with my whole being. Finally, we gotta talk about my boy Wylan. I adore Wylan with my soul. I love him so much. I really actually quite related to Wylan in a lot of ways. A reading issue. I don't want to say he's illiterate, because he's not. It seems to be more like a dyslexia or just some kind of reading impairment. And, as someone with a disability, I definitely connected to him in that respect. Plus, he's also a small ginger boy, and I live for small ginger boys and girls. I love gingers. Like, it's just a small sweet spot of mine. I am hopeless when it comes to redheads. But anyway, I just loved his character. Loved getting to see him grow, because he had so much growth throughout the books. And I just loved his interactions with certain characters. Like, once again, I was not a huge fan of his interactions with Kaz, but I really enjoyed his interactions, of course, with Jesper. Them and their sassy banter was literally everything I wanted. And I mean, the thing about my favorite boys, Jesper and Wylan, is they weren't in Six of Crows that much, and I think that might be part of why I just wasn't as much of a fan of that book, at least in part. But I loved my small sassy boys. Anyway, as I said before, I just was not impressed with Six of Crows, like the actual book, Six of Crows. I pretty much felt apathetic about the whole thing until like the very, very ending. I was somewhat engaged. I felt the most engaged in those, like the last few chapters than I had for the majority of the book. And so that was interesting to me. I kind of knew what was coming, but I was also like, I'm interested to see where this is going. And so I really enjoy getting to see the end, and it of course ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, and that's where Crooked Kingdom picks up. But one thing I do want to touch on is all of these people in these books are teenagers, right? And they don't read like teenagers. Like, the Crows are supposed to be like 17, 18, somewhere in that age range. And they read more like their mid-20s, early 30s. Like me, I'm 25 right now. I'll be 26 at the end of May. And I felt more connected to them, like the way that they read and the way that I interpreted them, than thinking that they were in their teens, because they just didn't feel that way to me. And I'm pretty sure that that's a pretty common complaint from a lot of people, but it's like, literally, if you were writing these teens, make them like teens instead of making them feel like they're 30 or mid-20s, because just the experiences and the stuff they went through, it just seemed like it would fit better with kind of older characters. But whatever, they didn't feel their age at all, and it just really detracted. So I kind of self-inserted and erased the ages that they said they were in the books and just inserted my own ages, and it made my reading experience just a little bit better, and I was a little bit less put off by it, I guess. It was a big situation. We're gonna move on now to talking about Crooked Kingdom, the book I actually enjoyed. So Crooked Kingdom picks up right where Six of Crows left off, and I really enjoyed my journey with Crooked Kingdom. Like a flip switched, honestly. The writing was tighter, it flowed better, the flashbacks that we got just meshed really well with the story that was being told at that given moment. The characters were more fleshed out, we got to learn more about them, their dialogue just made more sense, it flowed. The story was more interesting and more engaging, and I just really enjoyed my overall ride. I mean, was it the best thing I ever read in my life? No, but it was at least tolerable and entertaining, and it kept my interest throughout the whole book. And I actually surprisingly got through it very, very quickly, which, safe to say, I mean, I did that with the other books too, but like, I pretty much skimmed them because I didn't care. But this one, I was actually able to kind of have a little bit more of an immersive experience. It wasn't so much as me like being able to remove myself from the actual story I was reading. There were parts where I felt that way, but I didn't do it a whole ton. So the writing was a little bit better. As I said, it flowed better and it was tighter. It was a tighter story in general. So I really, really saw Leigh Bardugo's growth in Crooked Kingdom more than any of the other books. So the writing was definitely a lot better, and it definitely had better pacing and a better reading experience overall. Now, moving on to the world building, same as before. Not much world building, but we got also at the same time, we got a little bit more, but also not. These are very, very character-centric books, and that's fine for me, but like I like character-centric books with like good, solid world building too. And so just, once again, that was something that was severely lacking. This time it didn't detract as much as it has in the past. Then talking about the plot. The plot of this one, I don't know, there's something about it. It moved better and it flowed better, and it was just more exciting and interesting to me. Just the way it all worked, because most of it took place in Ketterdam this time in many, many ways and shapes and forms and things. Once again, we were with our Six of Crows crew, and they were on a journey to do all kinds of stuff. I can't really talk much about the plot of the second one without spoiling things that happened in Six of Crows, and it would just be a lot of spoilers anyway. So if you read them, you know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to risk talking about this to people who haven't read it, because I do know there are a few people out there still that have not finished everything. But I definitely really enjoyed the plot more. There was a lot more exciting, heisty things, and a lot more turmoil for them, and a lot more twists and turns that were a little bit on the unpredictable side, but like it was still very, very predictable to me for most of the book. So I really enjoyed it. But it definitely wasn't the best story I've ever read. But for Leigh Bardugo, it was definitely my favorite of the books. Now, finally, talking about all of the characters once again, I loved the characterization in Crooked Kingdom a lot. I mean, there were some characters that I was like, you have had literally no character growth. I don't care. And that was primarily a Kaz issue. I mean, we got a little bit of character growth and a little bit more character background from him. But for the most part, I just didn't care about him. Like, anytime he was on the page, I was just like, okay, what stupid thing are you going to do now? How are you going to irritate me this time? Like, I don't care about you. So it was just like really annoying, but there were certain scenes and certain lines that I really enjoyed from him. The same thing happened with Inej. I kind of had a lot of whiplash with her. There were certain scenes and certain chapters that I really, really enjoyed from her, but then there were others where I was just like, I don't care. You need to get over yourself. And Leigh Bardugo kind of expanded on their relationship a little bit more, which was also nice, but also super annoying. I was just like, okay, you guys need to get over yourselves and get over this, whatever the hell your questionable relationship is, because it's really uncomfortable. And I am screaming sitting here reading this thing because it's super irritating to me. As I said, I love slow burn. I love like a romance like that, but it just did not work. Moving on to talking about Matthias. He had a whole ton of character growth, and I actually liked him quite a bit more in this book than I did in the last one. He grew a ton in so many ways, and I really quite ended up enjoying his character and really ended up enjoying how his dynamic with each and every one of the crows. I just really liked seeing what he grew from, how he kind of changed his mindset and was a little bit more open and a little bit less judgmental about certain things. And so I just really liked getting to see his growth. Then Nina. She also had an interesting arc in this book, and I really enjoyed getting to see that. And if I choose to read King of Scars, I have not decided if I'm going to do that yet. I'll be really interested to see where her arc goes, because I feel like there's a lot to explore with her, especially with what happened with all the events in Crooked Kingdom, because there was a lot that impacted her and a lot that affected her in many, many different ways. And I don't know, she just ended up being one of my favorite characters from Crooked Kingdom. And then next, Jesper. Jesper had quite a huge character arc in this book, and I was living for it. Just the use of all of the parental things that were particularly thrown into Crooked Kingdom, we got to see a lot of Jesper's relationship with his father. And I really, really enjoyed it. I loved Jesper's father. I loved Jesper's story arc. And I really want to know more about his fabricator abilities, especially in regards to his shooting, because that was something that came up and is something that I want to know a little bit more about. So I was really just super into that. And then, I don't know, I just really loved his interactions with everybody, but in particular Wylan, and we'll talk about that in a second because I can't not talk about my small children. But yeah, I just really liked Jesper's storyline. And then finally, my boy Wylan. Oh my God, there were moments when I was reading certain aspects of his chapters where I was like tearing up a little bit, not like sobbing or anything, but like definitely felt some tear prickles and things. And just, he had a really heartbreaking journey, but also a really gorgeous one. And I just, as I said, I really connect to Wylan in a lot of ways. And I just loved getting to see what happened with his journey. And then just him and Jesper and their budding relationship was like everything. There was a brief like mutual pining, misunderstanding moment situation. I was like, yes, this is what I want. This right here is good. And then it resolved like very quickly. And I was like, why did you not drag it out longer? I mean, please give me that kind of angsty things. But I was satisfied anyway. They're still my small children and I love them. I also should have talked a little bit about Nina and Matthias, because they also had a bit of a romantic arc as well. And I really enjoyed getting to see their relationship, but it also was not my favorite thing. I'm weirdly picky with romantic relationships in some ways, but I also live for them no matter what. So it's just kind of a double-edged sword, you know, part of my brand as per usual. So in general, I really, really enjoyed Crooked Kingdom, you know, quite a bit more than I was expecting to. I did not go into that book expecting to like it, or at least enjoy it in the way that I did. I was fully going in being like, okay, this book is going to take me like a month to get through. It's going to be boring. I'm not going to care about anything. But I ended up enjoying it well enough. And I know a lot of people talk about certain things that happen at the end of Crooked Kingdom. And I mean, honestly, it was spoiled for me. But even if it wasn't, there was so much foreshadowing throughout the book that I kind of figured what was going to come in the first place. Was I sad when it happened? A little bit. But I don't think I was as affected as most other people were. Mostly because of reasons that I've already said. I mean, you know who my favorite characters are. You know who the characters are that I like a little bit less. But I definitely see how it would impact each and every one of them. And I'd be interested to see how that goes moving forward. Overall, I was not impressed with Six of Crows, but I enjoyed Crooked Kingdom. So it was a solid balancing out of the things, and I was pleasantly surprised with how Crooked Kingdom went. As for the overall series, you guys kind of got my general thoughts. Wasn't a major fan of Six of Crows, and I definitely enjoyed Crooked Kingdom, and you guys kind of know my reasons why because of the way I broke it down. But I know there's a lot of people out there who have read this, so definitely feel free to leave me a comment down below. And if you want to talk spoilers, definitely come over to my Twitter and you can DM me about it, because as I said, there are a few people out there that I know who haven't read at least Crooked Kingdom yet, and I don't want to spoil anybody for anything. But other than that, you guys know the drill. I have both my social media links down below. I have the Twitter that I referenced earlier, which is @ASeaofTomes, which is the same as my handle here. And I also have a Goodreads where you guys can go over there and follow me and see what I'm reading and track my progress and see my general thoughts on things before I come scream at you about them over here. But other than that, I'll catch you later in another video with you guys again soon. Bye!